Sweet. Okay, cool. Thanks everybody for joining for this week. So for the people whose first time is here, the idea of what we're trying to do with these fuddles is essentially create a space where we can kind of give updates of what we're working on for the week or the month. And ultimately, one of the prompts that kicked this off was that I was having a lot of conversations with different people in this group. And after every conversation, I felt like I walked away with like 10 new links, 10 new resources, and 10 new insights about the audience that I'm trying to serve as well. I think there's a lot of overlap in terms of the audiences that we're trying to look after and a lot of insights that we cross shared. So the very simple idea is that we get on here, we say what our goal is for the week, what we're trying to do for the month, and maybe whatever our biggest challenge is that we're focused on. And then the idea is maybe at the end we can jump into conversations about any of those topics, continue on if people want to keep chatting. But that's the loose format that we're going to do. So what I was going to suggest is if people can kind of there is the Discord channel, so I think people have thrown intros there. So what I suggest is for this roundtable is we keep the introductions like short-ish, and then start focusing on the kind of things that we're working on. So just enough context so people get what the challenge is, what you're working on. So with that, I might we have David as well, right? So I'll kick off just for the example. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Ian. I am working in the creator economy. Particularly, we started looking at problems around growth and monetization. So over the last couple of weeks, a lot of the focus has been talking to as many creators as possible. This week, the focus for me is to start leaning further into some of the insights and synthesizing the learnings, which is that people are really struggling with establishing formalities around monetizing partnerships. So we're going to lean further into that, start working out like kind of the pitch deck around that in terms of what's the business models here that will make sense, what's the target market. And then I think the overall goal for the month is to start getting like some live proof of concepts that solve those pain points with creators. So the biggest challenge, or what I'd love to chat to people about, is different business models around this space, because with creators in general, they've got a lot lower in terms of purchasing power than an enterprise SaaS would have. So I'd love to talk to people around how are they thinking about like from a startup perspective, monetizing that audience is what I'd be interested to chat to people about. So with that, I'm going to popcorn over to Adam.
Yeah, I'm Adam, software engineer working with Ian in the same space, so on the creator economy. And yeah, a lot of what he said was applicable to what I'm working on. More concretely, this week, I'm putting together a sort of landing page mock-up for that media kit idea, and we're kind of wrapping up some work on we're kind of exploring this idea of trying to enrich creators' audiences. So taking Substack lists and trying to see if there's other information you could get from that to maybe influence your content decisions or your advertisement decisions. And we feel like we sort of have pulled that thread as far as we can take it. So just wrapping up a few kind of final things on that. And then, yeah, goal for the month, again, similar to Ian, trying to kind of start the next idea and get moving on that. And yeah, I'd honestly just be interested to talk about really anything in the creator economy, like what people are working on, what they're seeing are the challenges and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's pretty much it for me. And I'll maybe pop it over to Alex Adamov, because you're next on the alphabetical list.
Hi guys, yeah, I'm Alex. I'm building a tool for YouTube creators to hopefully give them some analytics and some data to understand their audiences better, especially the feedback, the topics that their audiences are talking about, which is not so easy for at least on the YouTube channel to gather, especially if you have a certain number of comments, hundreds and maybe thousands of comments and interactions with your audience. So I'm hoping to provide some additional data which is not available on the platform. This week I'm focused really on understanding what's available out there in terms of processing text, really, to get a bunch of text from comments, for example, and try to extract meaning Is there any feedback? Is there any topics or parts of the content that people have liked? Is that possible? So I'm exploring the tools that are available. Yeah, so it's interesting, but it's a bit challenging because I think a lot of us have not heard about GPT-3, but I think for extracting meaning, it's different types of models that are actually more appropriate, and these are more tricky than just calling an API. So it's been an interesting week, but it's a very exciting area because processing text is not only useful for this, but it can be applicable in so many ways. So it's something that, anyways, will be interesting down the line. And yeah, so I'll pass it to the next Alex Nevedovsky. Your turn.
Cool, thanks. So yeah, I'm Alex. I'm based primarily out of Poland, Warsaw, and I'm currently building Input Space. Contrary to some of you guys, we're not like directly like servicing creators in a sense that we just like give them something that solves their problem. Instead, what we went out to do is to basically create a more customizable and kind of like Web3 friendly alternative to Notion. If any of you have used it as like, project management slash note taking tool. And we want to do this with creators in mind as creators ourselves. So I'm an example of a no-code creator, kind of like creating those like templates and sharing them. I have a number of articles with like 100,000 plus views. And my co-founder is more of a developer kind of creator. So he's like, building those extensions and scripts and those kinds of things. And so this idea came actually from our own kind of like background and perspective, and we kind of like felt that here's this big creator economy space, and in productivity creators are not really like served too well because if you're kind of like a no code creator, you don't really have a marketplace. You need to figure things out by yourself, selling stuff on Gumroad and stuff. And if you're a developer, you are like limited, like super limited. You can't even build something on Notion. You can only build on top of that and use it in some other context. So that's basically just a very, very quick kind of like intro to why we're building what we're building. And I'm not sure if any of you are currently like thinking about fundraising or maybe doing it, but this is how we decided to basically continue with our idea. We spent about a month kind of like researching and completing CusDev and all that. And given that we have a pretty decent background, both me and my co-founder, we decided that maybe it could be a cool idea to like, get out there and get a pre-seed funding even before kind of like the product being available and shipped and all that. So we're like in the midst of that, kind of like officially kicking it off this week. Having a number of like angel commits, but still, we're targeting about 1 million in pre-seed, which is, a significant amount. So I guess by the end of the month, I'll give you guys an understanding of how this goes, right? How easy it is to fundraise in the current market, because obviously, it's not perfect. Everybody knows there is a recession going on, and a lot of investors are like, I'm on hold, or I'm like on pause and all that. But yeah, I guess my main goal for this month is to just like try to get this fundraising going. And in the process, we're getting tons of feedback. We're also doing kind of like CusDev with those creators and all that. But our main focus right now is fundraising. Hopefully that gives you a bit of a context. Thanks. All right. So for the next one, Julia Luca, here you go.
Hi. It's my first time here, so I'll give a very short intro about where I come from. I quit my job about 2 months ago. I was doing natural language processing research at Google, and I just decided that I wanted to start my own company. Biggest reason is that natural language generation, which is super big right now, it's really hard to do in big tech companies, and startups are a lot more suitable to do it. So the way Gaurav and I have been navigating the ideation space is kind of connected to creators because we think of ways in which generative AI will enable people to produce better, more content. So we don't know who our target audience is at this point. It could be creators, it could be end consumers, we don't know, but it's interesting to understand the creator space just because we could then maybe understand how generative AI could help them. And for this week in particular, we're looking at podcasts and how we can help people discover them and digest them in a shorter time than looking or listening to the entire 2-hour thing. But that's just one sprint that we're doing. We kind of work in like weekly or bi-weekly sprints, and this is what we're doing this time. And Alex, I wanted to tell you that if you need any help, I'm happy to have a one-on-one with you.
Yeah, definitely,
Okay.
would be great.
So next one is David. Are you here, David?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm David Prorock. I'm a former software engineer, but I've been working as a full-time music artist since February of 2020. And right now, I'm trying to get into the Web3 space and take some of the art that I've created over the last couple of years and like launch it as an NFT project. And so I've been doing a lot of networking recently, connecting with the local NFT community in Chicago, and also just creating art. And I'm looking for a co-founder slash like the right community or project. Like I'm just looking for like a person to work on a project together. And in the meantime, I'm planning out some NFT launches, and that's why I'm here. And I'm a rapper. I don't know if I mentioned that. And I also have a YouTube channel with like 8,000 subscribers. And what I'm working on this week is kind of doing a comprehensive review of the last 2 months and then putting together like task lists to plan out this launch that I'm working on. That's where I'm at. Excited to hear from everybody else. Thanks. Oh, and popcorn to Solomon.
Hi everyone. So my throat's a little bit sore, so I won't take too long. So I'm Solomon. I'm the founder of Curated Funding. So I built an online platform that helps artists, musicians, and filmmakers access funding opportunities that are usually quite difficult to find. So I built it using researchers, and I've managed to scale it to the point at which I kind of want to sell it and move on, and then leverage that experience to work as a product manager for a growth stage startup that serves the creator economy. And I'm kind of hacking my way into that role, which I guess part of that is building a public profile of a product manager. So by building more products, I can then I'll have more leverage to get a role in the creator economy. Or one of those organizations. So that's pretty much what I'm working on at the moment. And the way I'm doing that is by synthesizing a lot of my learning from different organizations in the creator economy and doing research about those organizations and then using that as content and interviewing founders and product managers in the creator economy. Hope that wasn't too convoluted, but that's pretty much what I'm working on. Who do I pass on to? Oh, Gaurav.
Hey guys,
So,
my name is Gaurav. I'm
Awesome.
joining from San Jose in California. So like Ila said, we are working together, and I was also actually at Google. I was a PM at Google until January, and we are evaluating opportunities in like generally in the generative art of AI space. But the most relevant one here, like Julia was talking about, is in the space of like podcasts that we are evaluating. So the maybe highlighting it from the problem statement, we are thinking about there's a lot of content out there, and it's hard for users to figure out which content to consume. And if they want to consume, is there a better way we can help them consume that content? So we are evaluating the podcast space with respect to this. Is there a way we can help users help build like a Blinkist for podcast, or some kind of like a stumble upon for podcast, which can help users go through a different set of podcasts in a specific area that they are interested in, and from there make better choice for their discovery and like assessment. So yeah, that's what we are building on in terms of the focus for this week. I think I'm looking for people who are enthusiastic about podcasts. So if you guys are like hardcore into podcast, let me know, and I'll probably set up a 30-minute call with you to just get some insights related to that. And then the second thing where we could potentially use your help is we are also thinking about how does the content consumption space is going to change in the next 3 to 5 years. Like right now, there are a set of podcasts, and like we have to listen to whatever is given. Is there a way we can use these like next generation generative technologies to maybe combine a few information from a few podcasts and create like one podcast out of it, which is like hyper personalized to what your needs are, for example? So there could be some other like new ways content can be consumed by users, and we're just like actively thinking about it right now. So if there are any ideas or feedback on that, would love to hear that. Ian, back to you.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. That was great. One thing I was just thinking as we're going through it, if anybody has any tips of things that they found that worked well in the week, feel free to throw them out. I think my one for this week, which I found worked really well for discovering new users, was finding open Twitter threads of people who are like, one of the questions, I think it's Kaylee Moore, she's an e-commerce writer, but she opened up a topic about burnout, and essentially like there must have been about 80 plus responses, and I DM'd, emailed every single one of them and got calls and with most of them. So as in like, I found that was like a really good opener to kind of just like lean into the conversation. They're caring enough to engage about it. So we're trying to solve for those problems as well. So that really helped get those calls and jump on. And then I think the bit that was kind of funky in terms of trying to get a hold of people, some people weren't willing to do calls, which is fair enough. So I'd start trying to do it through email. Ideally, I put the word out if there's a version. I'd love, it's like, ideally it would be great to get their number and do like a WhatsApp voice message back and forth, because I have that with a couple of actually people that were comfortable to do it, moved over to WhatsApp for really interesting insights. But I guess that was one thing I was looking for. Is there like a neat form that like takes voice messages that maybe I could like load that into? So that's one thing I'm kind of half thinking about as well. So just one tip in case anybody finds that useful. So.
And did Twitter like DMs actually work for you? Because I like most of the times they actually don't really work for me. Like it seems like people don't really check them out, or I don't know, maybe Twitter like somehow doesn't show them. I don't know.
It depends. What I find is if there's somebody that depends on getting DMs, they check them. I don't like, I've missed DMs so many times because it's like you don't get alerted. It's like you have to approve it. What I tend to do, actually, what's a good kind of closer to get somebody to respond is like I'll usually send 1 to 3 messages of follow up. And actually, the third follow up has often gotten us the person, and they wrote back and said, "So sorry, I missed these." So like sometimes you can kind of feel like, oh, am I being pushy here? But usually what I do on my last follow-up is I put a line that says, I won't send you any other messages after this one. So it's just kind of like that you're closing the loop. You're not going to chase them again. And actually, interesting enough, that's usually when people respond and they're like, oh, so sorry, as in like, and you get a response. So I found that to be useful, but it is hit or miss. Like I've got some people that wrote back after like 4 weeks and are like, oh, sorry, I missed this. So I'd say a mix of adding a couple of follow-ups and then just keep trying with other people as well. So
I also wanted to throw this one thing. I read this article. I don't remember the exact link, but I'll send it to Discord later. It was about the winter of creator economy. Have any of you guys seen this? It was written by one of the I think Every. There is this kind of like newsletter cooperative.
Yeah.
Probably knows this article if he's nodding.
Yeah, it was a really interesting article. I read that.
Yeah, it was pretty insightful. So
Mm.
maybe we could discuss this, sometime. Maybe if not today, then. Oh yeah, here's the line. Because it seems like the guy is obviously a bit biased, but he has his points, right? And it's hard to argue against those points. So yeah.
Actually, on that, as interested what people's perspective was, I reached out and emailed them, so I kind of like sent him this question directly. So I'll see what he says back. But I was curious about his perspective of like saying that the way to survive this winter was to increase the take rates as a startup and like move into revenue share and move away from like SaaS subscription. But what's interesting is that like if you look at all the narratives, as in it's a lot of it's saying that like the take rates are killing all these creators and that they can't make money on these platforms because the platforms are king and they're taking all of the revenue. So I'm just like, I think that's one thing that I was interested to chat to people about as well, as around that business model thinking, as in like, what is an effective way for a startup to be built, get VC sort of investment, or even not VC investment, just investment to grow to a certain scale or size while still putting the creator first. So I don't know if people had thoughts about that or generally what he was proposing.
Mm. I was thinking
I haven't
about.
read the,
Sorry.
no, go ahead.
Sorry. I was just thinking that a lot of creator economy startups were going at the model that where you could charge $10 to $29 a month or something for a service, and then that's how you'd scale your business. And I think that meant that a lot of people were looking for low-hanging fruit problems, like kind of like link in bio sort of startups and things like that, because inevitably they were thinking that they were just going to charge a commission. But I think once people realize that that's not on the table, it forces people to innovate and like try and solve larger problems. Because I know when I look at Sweet Cakes, you can see a lot of problems there, but then there's kind of like I don't know how to describe it, but a way that you'd evaluate whether the problem was worth going after and worth solving. And one of those right now, because of the winter of the creator economy, is that you can't build it based on like a £29 a month subscription. So have you thought about that when it comes to like changing your business model or any problem that you're going after?
Yeah, that's what I'm like. For me, anyway, at least I'm deeply thinking about that right now. As in, like, what's the actual ways of like, it kind of, like we're thinking about like some of the problems we're tackling is the partnership kind of model. So we're like, how do we like switch gears and put the creators in the driver's seat and the partners in the kind of responsive mode, and like charge them for the luxury to meet these people. So we're kind of saying the way we're looking at it is in like, what gives them greater leverage, and some of those aspects will be like more insights and data that says this is why my audience is valuable, and then helping them have better conversations is one. It is the hypothesis for us to test, I guess. So, but it is the big question. What also, I had an interesting conversation with a creator this week, and he said what he found interesting. I shared a list on Sweet Cakes, and he said that like, it's amazing how there's no business operations problems up here. And I don't know if people have heard this in their discovery, but I have heard very little about like challenges around tax, filing, accounting, just running a business. Hasn't really come up too often for people that I've been speaking to, at least. I'm just curious if anybody else had come across those type of problems, because they feel like big, meaty problems as well, that you could do something rather than the 29 a month sort of model as well.
For that to be a problem, the person has to make money.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair.
And then maybe one of the things that I got from some internet research was a lot of these big creators who have, let's say, on the order of 10 plus million subscribers, at least on, let's say, YouTube, they have these managers who are managing a lot of their stuff. So I guess if you already have a team, then the creators probably aren't thinking about taxes and those kind of things. It's their managers who are thinking about those things.
Yeah. I personally am just like, it kind of bothers me that it seems like the only, and maybe this is just like a function of like business in general, like there's only so many ways that, like there's only so many monetization models, and it just kind of frustrates me in the creator economy, because it seems like it's just like advertisement, and like that's kind of it, and like subscriptions. So something I've been like racking my brain over is like, how else does the transaction happen, and like what are other creative ways, like co-ops, or like, yeah, obviously all the Web3 stuff and like rev share, and there's like other ways, but like even going further than that and like trying to think really outside the box of like how can money change hands from consumers to creators, and sort of all the like combinatorics of that happening.
I'd be really interested seeing someone's research into that, like organizing all of the, because I think I've put a couple of databases into the Discord chat that other people have organized of all of the different creator economy companies or startups. And it would be really interesting to see them organized into how they drive revenue and like what their revenue models are, because that would be really interesting to see them grouped together. Yeah,
I'd be interested in that as well.
Cool. I know we're officially at time. If people have to drop, feel free to drop. Thank you for joining. I got a lot of value out of it, and I hope everybody else did too. I'm cool to hang around and keep chatting. I'd love to chat to a few other people as well, if anybody wants to talk about stuff. So if you're not running off, feel free to hang out. But yeah, so I'll pause there and give people a chance.